Hi, I'm Micah Halpern. Thank you for joining me today as I do some thinking out loud. The first thing I've been thinking about is Israeli elections. I promised that we would be doing several shows on the elections. The elections for the 12th Israeli Knesset and the next Prime Minister will take place on March 17th, just prior to Passover. We have to remember that elections in Israel are nothing like they are in the United States. We in the US have a habit of thinking that all democracies all over the world are just like ours. They are not. The US is a republic. Israeli democracy is more similar to the UK and Canada. They have a parliament and a prime minister. Although there's a president in Israel, the president's main role is a figurehead, similar to the Queen of England. The person who runs the country is actually the prime minister. Israeli elections can be very heady, very heavy, fraught with issues of security, safety, nuclear threats, terror threats, foreign affairs, the economy. But there's also great humor in almost every Israeli election. Here is a humor skit poking fun at one of the leading candidates, Naftali Bennett, and his party, Habayit HaYehudi, the Jewish Home Party. This video, actually it's a video parody, is based on a column in Haaretz, where the columnist calls the party a cuckoo party. The head of the party, Bennett, then gets up afterwards and lists the names of his party representatives and asks after each name if they are indeed cuckoo. The video has been spliced. All the comments are original, but in different order, and put to music, and now it's a parody on Bennett defending his party. Now he looks cuckoo. Watch the 60-second video. You need no knowledge of Hebrew. It's very clear and very funny.
אני נפתלי בנט, ראש הסיעה הקוקואית ביותר בכנסת. הבית היהודי היא הקוקואית ביותר בכנסת. אני קוקו, גאה. אני קוקו, ינון מגל, וואלה הוא קוקו. מוטי יוגב, וואלה הוא קוקו. אורי אריאל, וואלה הוא קוקו. והילד שקד, היא באמת קוקואית. אולי הרב רונסקי, וואלה הוא קוקו. הרב אלי בן דן, הוא קוקו. ואורית סטרוק, היא באמת קוקואית. אז אולי כולנו קוקואים. אני קוקו. הצטרפו לקוקי. אני קוקו. גאה. אני קוקו. הצטרפו לקוקי. אני קוקו. מה זה?
We have a slew of ads and jingles and bumper stickers portraying the ideals, visions, and foibles of each party. In Bennett's defense, we should show an ad about his party's point of view. Here is another ad, an ad that Bennett's party created, making fun of Israelis who live in Tel Aviv and apologizing for everything Israel does. His party, Habayit HaYehudi, is arguing, don't apologize for Israel, be proud of Israel.
אוי, סליחה, אני ממש, אני לא התכוונתי, סליחה, אני מתנצל, אני ממש מתנצל. סליחה. סליחה. עליי, טעות שלי, אני מתנצל. אני מה זה מתנצל. אני באמת מתנצל. סליחה, אני ממש מתנצל, זה בסדר, תקחי. תודה. אני פה עם אופניים, אל תגיעי. טוב, בסדר. צודקים. מהיום מפסיקים להתנצל. התפקדו עכשיו לבית היהודי. Sorry, you come to Israel, I hope everything okay, sorry. סליחה, אני מצטער, לא. סליחה, אני לא התכוונתי להפריע, באמת, לא. אני מתנצל, לא התכוונתי להפריע. לא, סליחה, אני לא רציתי להפריע, אבל... זה בסדר, תשאירו, אל תשאירו, זה אני... סליחה, אני מתנצל. סליחה. מזל טוב. היום מתחתנים? לא בטוח. לא, סליחה, אני מצטער, אני מתנצל שהפרעתי לכם, אבל באמת שיהיה במזל טוב. מה המצב? אני מתנצל, סליחה. התפקדו עכשיו לבית היהודי. אהלן.
Now, here is an ad that was banned because it is illegal to use children, but it is very, very funny. The Likud party was fined a few thousand shekel, but everyone was talking about this ad. Money well spent. What do you think? In the video, the Prime Minister is the kindergarten teacher. The kids are leaders of the other parties in the Knesset. The teacher keeps telling the kids to play nicely. The point of the video is clear. The only adult in the room is the Prime Minister, Bibi Netanyahu.
ילדים, תירגעו, אנחנו לא נצליח לעשות כלום היום. איווט, אתה מוכרח ללמוד לחלוק עם הילדים האחרים. כן, הוא אח. יאיר, די לשחק עם זה, אתה הורס את זה.
אני תפסתי, אני. זה שלי.
יאיר ונפתלי, די לריב על הכיסא. ציפי, די לרוץ ממקום למקום. חבל על הזמן, אי אפשר להמשיך עם גל הילדים הזה. כדי לנהל מדינה צריך ממשלה חזקה ויציבה. מצביעים ליכוד לשינוי השיטה. די, ציפי.
There have been a lot of debates and discussions about the priorities of the Jewish state. That discussion is enormously positive. But let's talk about how elections work in Israel. Israel is a parliamentary democracy, not a republic like the US. As I said, elections in Israel are more like Canada and Great Britain than they are in the United States. In Israel, the Knesset is a parliament that's composed of 120 seats. In this election, 26 parties will vie for the 120 seats. In an earlier episode, I explained how the name of the Knesset came about. In short, it was a legislative body and judicial body of rabbis and leaders from the time of the Mishnah, when Jews were in control of Israel. It was the perfect name for the new parliament in Israel. These 120 members were originally a part of what was called the Anshe Knesset Hagdolah in the time of the Mishnah, and it was established by Ezra the prophet. It's called the Knesset today because Knesset actually means assembly. The word means to bring together. Israel's forefathers wanted a Jewish historical name that resonated with Jewish leadership and power. There had also been a Jewish body called the Sanhedrin, but the Sanhedrin had 70 representatives, and they were mostly scholars. The Anshe Knesset Hagdolah had leaders and scholars together. So it was decided that the new Jewish state in 1948, would have a parliament of 120 seats, and it would be called the Knesset and would be located in Jerusalem. Article 4 of the Basic Law of Israel discusses the Knesset elections. It should take place every 4 years, unless otherwise required by circumstances, like a vote of no confidence, which is what we have right now. This is the quote from the Basic Law. The Knesset shall be elected by general, national, direct, equal, secret, and proportional elections in accordance with Knesset election law. This March 17th election is early because the government fell. Special situation. Israelis vote for parties, not for people. This is important. I need to repeat it. Israelis vote for parties, not for a person. The parties create a list, and according to the percentage of votes received, that many members of the party enter the Knesset. But there is a threshold, a minimum number of votes required to get into the Knesset to be part of the 120. The threshold used to be very low, 1%. Then it was increased a little higher. Eventually, in 2013, it was increased to 2%. But in March 2014, the Knesset raised the threshold to 3.25%, 3.25%. This increase is supposed to eliminate the tiny parties. That way, a single or even a two-seat party cannot exist. Now, in order to be represented as a party needs 3.25% of the votes, which is 3 seats. 26 parties submitted their lists to the registry and will run. The standard parties include Likud, Labor, which merged with Hatnuah, which now created a new group called the Zionist Camp, HaMachaneh HaTzioni, Yesh Atid, the Jewish Home Party, Israel Beitenu, Kadima, Meretz, Shas, United Torah Judaism, and 3 Arab parties. Of the 26 parties, only between 10 and 14 will actually make it into the Knesset. Every citizen of Israel, 18 or older, may vote for one party. After the votes have been tallied, the fun really begins. That's called the coalition. In order to govern, a party must create alliances with other parties to create a coalition of at least 61, one more than half of the 120 seats in the Knesset. The party most likely to form a government is asked by the president to do so, and that leader has 28 days to do so. They may request another 14 on top of that if necessary. Otherwise, the president asks another party to form the government. The leader of that party becomes the prime minister. So there's no direct election for prime minister like there is in the United States for president, and a separate election for Congress. Israel had direct ballot for prime minister once in 1996, and a second ballot for the Knesset. Like the US style, only in Israel, it happened once. But they abolished that in 2001. It was a dismal failure and could not rein in the prime minister and made the Knesset almost powerless. Interestingly, in 1996, the prime minister elected in that direct election was Bibi Netanyahu. The coalition is then created with agreements that promise the other parties that join the coalition power, positions, and principles. It happens that almost by definition, the party who forms the government sets the tone. But it's the next largest party in the coalition that has the power, because if they bolt, the government will almost always fall, and Israel returns to new elections. Here's a chart of the parties themselves. Take a look at it carefully. On the center and right, left, that's in the middle, you have a sense of what's going on. Likud is in the center right, led by Benjamin Netanyahu, who's the current prime minister. Center left and Labor is Hatnuah and Labor Together, the new Zionist camp, led by Isaac Herzog and Tzipi Livni. Moving right, the Jewish Home, Habayit Yehudi, is there led by Naftali Bennett. Then you have further right, you have Israel is Our Home, which is Yisrael Beitenu, led by Avigdor Lieberman. On the left, you have Yesh Atid, which is center-left and a little bit further, which is a new party now running for its second election, led by Yair Lapid. Further to the left, you have Meretz, led by Zahava Gal-On. Then you have religious parties, which really don't fit in right and left spectrums. United Torah Judaism, which is composed of Ashkenazim, and then the Shas, and its splinter party, Yachad, which is composed of Sfaradim. Sfaradim are Jews who came to Israel from Arab lands and their descendants. It looks, by the way, like the splinter party Yachad may get into the Knesset, and the original party, Shas, may not pass the threshold to get enough votes. There is another new party called Kulanu, meaning all of us together. Then, of course, there are the Arab lists, which will garner about 11 seats altogether, as they always do. And there are other options available too. Predictions are coming out all the time as to who's going to win and who's going to get what. It's too early to tell what will happen over the next few weeks and predict who will win. But the polls are now showing that Likud has moved back into the leading position. And there's been an increase in those who want Netanyahu as prime minister. But the polls change all the time. It's important to see trends. The trend right now shows Likud gaining and Labor dropping a little bit. Coming up next, points of view. Here's what some important voices have been talking about. First up is a column by Victor Davis Hanson. It's entitled, "Can the Jewish State Still Survive?" Hanson is a true lover of Israel. He's questioning the current political environment, which has become so hostile to Israel. So hostile that the issues that were once a given in support of Israel may be seriously shaken. He begins, quote, "Israel is the only liberal democracy in the Middle East and North Africa. 8 million Israelis are surrounded by 400 million Muslims in more than 20 states. Almost all Israel's neighbors are anti-Israeli dictatorships, monarchies, or theocracies, some reduced to terrorist chaos." Henson then asks, given the neighborhood, how has the Jewish state survived? Well, the answer is this. Hanson describes what he calls 3 unspoken assumptions that enable Israel to survive. 1, democratic nuclear Israel, its deterrence against larger enemies. 2, Western tradition of Israel, free markets, capitalism, human rights, democracy, all of that together. And 3, Western moral support from the US and Europe. Hanson now argues that 1 and 3 are no longer givens. With the rise of Iran's nuclear capabilities, number 1 is gone. And over the past few years, Israel has become ridiculed by the West and constantly abused by the United States. So number 3 is gone too. He begins to conclude by saying that the new status will probably continue unless there's a change in DC and a change of mind in Europe. His final paragraph reads, quote, "A tiny democratic beacon in the Middle East should inspire and rally Westerners. Instead, too often, Western nations shrug and assume that Israel is a headache, given that there is more oil and more terrorism on the other side." Coming up, commentary through cartoons, where pictures tell the story. This first cartoon needs a little bit of background. An Iranian cultural center announced a plan to hold a competition for Holocaust denial cartoons in response to the massacre targeting Charlie Hebdo, the magazine, after it published cartoons depicting the Prophet Muhammad. This is their response to our response to Islamic terror. Iran's House of Cartoon and the Sarche Shemeh cultural complex organized the competition, according to The Independent, and they invited participants to submit satirical drawings on the subject of Holocaust denial by the beginning of April. The competition announced a $12,000 prize for the winner, $8,000 and $5,000 for second and third place, respectively. The organizer of the competition said the cartoons would be displayed at the Palestine Museum of Contemporary Art in Tehran before being shown in other parts of the capital. The competition is the second of its kind in Iran. In 2006, the country's most popular paper, Ham Shahiri, had a competition also. They searched for the cleverest cartoons satirizing the genocide of Europe's Jews. The newspaper said the competition was a reaction to the double standard they called it, in the West, about freedom of expression. The winner of the first competition was a character named Abdallah Derkawi of Morocco. He depicted a crane painted with a Star of David, building a wall around the Dome of the Rock. The wall bears an image of the Auschwitz death camp. Following the publication of Charlie Hebdo's first post-massacre issue, Ayatollah Nasser Makarem Shirazi said, if they're showing another image of Muhammad, it will be, quote, equivalent to a declaration of war against Muslims. This second cartoon is by Michael Ramirez. We've used Ramirez before. He was born in Tokyo, but he actually lives in LA. His home is there on the West Coast, and he syndicates through Creators Syndicate. Ramirez drew a very insulting cartoon about 15 years ago, in the year 2000. He depicted a Jew in front of the Western Wall. Written on the wall was the word hate. The Jew was praying there with the letters hate on the wall, as well as a man with a keffiyeh was there also. This cartoon was published in the LA Times. The LA Times claims that there was more negative feedback from that cartoon than anything else in LA Times history. This particular Ramirez cartoon, the one that we're going to deal with right now, is far less controversial. Although this cartoon also pushes the envelope, which is what his cartoons do. It was published in Investor's Business Daily and is part of the Creators Syndicate. A US F-15 is flying. The pilot and navigator are talking to one another. The navigator says to the pilot, quote, Iran is developing a nuclear weapon. And the pilot responds, quote, so the White House wants us to attack Netanyahu, unquote. This is the continuation of the theme that cartoonists have developed over the past few weeks. Hundreds of cartoons have been published lampooning the White House about misplaced priorities. Iran's nukes are hugely important. They need to be addressed in a forthright manner. In a moment, my own perspective and a few predictions. I want to think out loud with you now. Some people are afraid to call them Muslim terrorists because it's a value judgment. And some media believe that if they refer to Islamic mass murderers as terrorists, they will be accused of showing bias. Me, I have a bias. My bias is for innocent victims who are slain by Muslim mass murderers who openly profess their desire to intimidate us, convert us, and if that does not work, to happily destroy us. I was floored when I read the comments of the head of the Arabic section of the BBC. The BBC's largest foreign section is the Arabic section. The name of the department head is Tariq Kafala. In an interview with the British newspaper, The Independent, Kafala described how he approached coverage of the terror attacks in France. Kafala said, quote, we try to avoid describing anyone as a terrorist or an act as being terrorist. He continued, what we try to do is to say that 2 men killed 12 people in an attack on the office of a satirical magazine. That's enough. We know what that means and what it is, unquote. Kafala tried to explain his editorial style by saying, we know what political violence is. We know what murder, bombings, and shootings are, and we describe them. That's much more revealing, we believe, than using a word like terrorist, which people will see as value-laden, unquote. How sad. And Kafala is just being a good BBC soldier. He's following the BBC guidebook in style and usage, which, he said, cautions that, quote, that the use of words terrorist or terrorist group can create inconsistency in their use or, to audiences, raise doubt about our impartiality, unquote. The BBC advises using words other than terrorist, words such as bomber, attacker, gunman, kidnapper, or militant. The free press is supposed to promote freedom, not suppress freedom. What a very sad state of affairs for the BBC. Also, I would like to call your attention to another major topic, a topic coming out of Iran. Here is a name from the past, Ahmadinejad. Yes, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, the former president of Iran, just opened a webpage. The page features a smiling photo of Ahmadinejad with the caption, "Coming back soon." That seems to be his new theme, coming back soon. It looks like the former political leader is setting the stage to make a comeback in the upcoming elections set for next year. The past few years have been a PR nightmare for Ahmadinejad. Many of his inner circle, his cronies, have been convicted of corruption in various forms. His vice president, for example, just last month, was convicted and sentenced to 5 years in prison and $300,000 fine. The charges were so problematic that even right-wing politicians who would see Ahmadinejad as toxic at this time and moved away from him clearly. Ahmadinejad now has been out of the public eye, but now he's trying to prepare himself to re-enter. And as he re-enters, he needs to distance himself from the corruption and present a new face. Ahmadinejad is very conservative, and that message is very powerful in many parts of Iran. Do not discount him. There are many positions of power that he may be seeking. One of those positions is most certainly the return to the presidency. We've been thinking out loud about a lot today. Now that you know what I've been thinking, tell me what you're thinking. You can email me at micah@jbstv.org, tweet me at Micah Halpern. Tell me what you think. Before we end, let me leave you with one piquant piece of information. Did you know that in the Sanhedrin, the ancient Jewish rabbinic court, they voted by holding up their pinky? The court was arranged and seated in concentric semicircles, the most senior in front, the juniors in the rear. The word Sanhedrin actually means to sit together in Aramaic. In the cases of importance, like capital cases, they inverted the seating so that the junior members were sitting in the front and the senior members were in the rear. That way, junior members had to vote their conscience and not take a lead from the senior rabbis. If just one member raised their pinky and voted against capital punishment, as he raised his pinky, he would say, "Ani melamed zchut," I exercise my right to disagree. If that happened, capital punishment was off the table. Thank you for thinking out loud with me, Micah Halpern. Let's think out loud again next week on JBS.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS, the Jewish Broadcasting Service, with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more, to the nonprofit organization Jewish Education in Media. Simply visit the JBS homepage and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check made out to GEM, Post Office Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York 10471. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. And we thank you for your kind support.